make magic. We take ordinary wood and we create something. It's been either your imagination, or you've seen something somewhere, or a piece of artwork just speaks to you that we've already created. But the public, we'd have nowhere to go with our work otherwise if it wasn't for the public. You know, you have a tree in your yard that you've made all these family memories under. Something's happened to it, you've lost that tree. Let us continue those memories. Let us bring a piece of your family and your heart to your home or somewhere else on your property. So I'm going to give this over to Nick. He's our main guy. So.
All right, thank you, Kelly. And of course, say thank you to 1 Million Cups for having us, and thank you again to Matt Boatwright. You made a lot of points that we ourselves like to adhere to, speaking a lot about roots, and you know, and they grow trees, and when they come to the end of their lives, you know, we come in and we will extend that life, making custom sculpture and even some of the on-site sculptures like you may have seen down at Liberty Park, public and private, and like I say, just basically trying to take the art form to the next level. And of course you can see some of the tools we use here, from the big saw here that does the largest cuts that we do, to down to the little guy here that, you know, kind of cute by comparison, but still very potent in its own realm. But, and it always starts with getting the wood, which we rely a lot on, you know, either private landowners or some of the tree services in the local area. Definitely a big shout out to Tim's Tree Service here in Sedalia, who is nice enough to let us kind of have the pick of the lot out there, and usually using some of the larger trees, because for the smaller stuff we actually acquire our own cedar, but the bigger sculptures we use oak and elm, which you can see some of these out of here, and even the little hummingbirds on the tables, those are actually out of elm. And believe it or not, those are actually carved with a chainsaw. So those are kind of yep, kind of our performance art that we'll do, because if you're at an event, you know, a lot of people don't have a lot of time to sit and watch an hour or two sculpture being made. So some of these are like 7 to 10 minutes, and that even includes paint. So I say very quickly we can turn a ordinary piece of wood into something extraordinary.
It takes a while to take something rough, and you can't always figure out what's going on and turn it into a later finished piece.
Yep.
And so we take little pieces like that, or even some of these little more rustic little owls that pop up in places. Like I said, it gives us a chance to have a variety in our work, hit various budgets for people, and make it fun for us.
Yep.
So.
And then, like I say, we start off with the chainsaw, but then we'll use different tools. Some you may have seen, others you may not have, and then right down to some of the smaller tools for like the details, and then we will get into finish work, which involves a lot of other different tools as well, painting as well, and
regards to big tools, itty bitty tools.
Yep.
So maybe you've seen things like this at your dentist office. You don't like to go to the dentist and get to see this particular tool. It eats wood just like it'll eat your teeth and take out that cavity. That itty bitty piece goes into a journal. So, you know, there's different homeowner projects and crafts and stuff kids maybe do. So some of you got to use a journal and such. Some of these other pieces eat wood just as fast as a chainsaw would, just as dangerous. People say, like, what do you do? It's like, we tame sharks and dance with them. That's kind of what we do. We like to bring unique. Matt talked about unique and, you know, different elements and stuff. We are trying to bring some unique things to the chainsaw carving world, pieces that they have not seen. I have a fine art background. On the business cards on the table, there's two-sided. One of them happens to have a painting. It's an eagle spirit. It's a painting I'm working on for a series for a calendar. It's got some of our national parks, and it's got an animal that's kind of predominant to their area that happens to be eagle spirit for one of the parks. So it's bringing a finer art aspect. There's a lot of people that, you know, it's like, oh, do you carve at the fair? You know, do you do log names? There's people for everything. Just like there's just different banking apps for people. Somebody wants to go into the bank. Somebody wants to have a finer piece done. So we try to hit more of that market. And like I said, keep it fun for us as well as for them. Log name, I'm dyslexic. I really don't want to make a log name. Nick will make them, but I misspell stuff often. So like I said, I typically kind of steer away from those. And the same log that the log name can be made out of, I can make 3 eagles. So a little more fun to make some eagles. Nick is second generation. His father has been carving for over 40 years. He's in upstate Washington currently right now. Nick has been kind of transplanted down here. He typically goes from Yakima area, Washington State, down into Queen, Arkansas, where we have one of our galleries. I grew up here, went to Smith Cotton. A lot of you all will see me picking up my kids at school when we have our trailers. In particular, to kind of show up in town and you can see what's going on. But my daughter's second generation artist. So family oriented is a lot of this. Sawdust. I brought different samples than what the bank I thought might bring me. If you've dealt with glitter, if you've dealt with a pet, there's different things, confetti, there's different things that, you're going to track in and be around sawdust. There's a lot of sawdust. When people, see the glamorous side of the finished pieces, they don't realize we're dealing with a lot of the rough side as well and a lot of the mess. So again, it has to be family based. I don't know how many times my kids will be on the way to school and it's like, I'm getting stuck by a piece of sawdust that I picked up in my sock because you didn't blow yourself off with the leaf blower, Mom, before you came in last night and stuff. So it's got to be family oriented. We like to do a lot of continuation pieces. Like I said, you've had a tree that you had a lot of fun memories. Maybe you had a swing on it once that your kids or the grandkids have played under, and now that tree's passed. We carry on for that next generation. And like I said, sometimes the whole tree can't be salvaged for us, but we can bring in smaller pieces. In connection to in the house. These 2 works in progress we brought in to show kind of some of the variation. This is going to be a rabbit who's playing a violin. This other is a squirrel that's going to be playing a saxophone. These are custom orders. I've carved full-size mermaids. There's a squirrel at Liberty Park. And we do whimsical pieces as well as this wood spirit. It's done in the driftwood. We're only limited by imagination and what people want to have. So bring us your ideas, There's never a, hey, have you carved that? No, but I'd love to. I recently finished a baby elephant that went to Texarkana. And a funny story about the squirrel at Liberty Park. I've been carving for less than 4 years now. I'm a full-time mom with 2 kids, and one of them has to be special needs, and I'm autoimmune myself. So I've started at it really late in life, but I hit the ground running. I'm a little bit of a maniac with the saw. I'm kind of different in the whole thing. Like the Nick's second generation, 20 plus years. I paint, I draw. A lot of carvers cannot do either one of those things. They can't even sketch you what you want. They can carve it and do a beautiful job, but they can't sketch it. And so when I first started out, my tools were more limited than what Nick has, and I couldn't fur a bear. For the life of me, I could not figure out the technique to get fur on a bear. And I kept carving these squirrels. Plus, as I found out, wood's heavy. Wood's heavy and messy. I loaded up some cedar one day in the back of my Ford Flex, which is kind of like the station wagon. I get to a site to unload all that free wood, to find out I had 200 roly-polies that had come out of the park and were now living all over the crevices of the back of my Ford Flex. So again, like I said, I'm carving squirrels because I can make a squirrel. My dad says, why do you keep making these squirrels? Everybody wants bears. I'm like, yeah, I can't fur a bear. Sedalia Parks and Rec got a hold of me, and they had seen my house on Facebook. They said, hey, we've got a tree, we want to do something. Can you carve us something? I said, awesome, sure. Went in, we had a meeting, I brought in my whole portfolio, some of my other pieces, limited, hadn't done it on site yet. We meet, we start to wait for the weather because the tree hadn't been topped yet. In the meantime, her boss, who loves the crazy squirrels there at Liberty Park, they're kind of known for how chubby they are, and they'll come up, try to steal French fries from you if you're having your lunch there. She comes back to me and she says, now this is kind of different, but can you do a squirrel? My boss loves squirrels. I'm like, can I do a squirrel? Are you kidding me? Awesome. So I got to tell my dad, guess what, Dad? They didn't ask for a bear. That's for a squirrel. It's like, winning, And I was lucky enough that whenever that project got topped out, Nick was able to get to town and help me with that. And again, being family owned, that worked out great for me. My daughter, who's my healthy child, spiked 103 fever right after we got set up that day. So again, family. If it hadn't been teamwork, we could not have gotten that piece done on the schedule that we wanted to do it in. So, you know, like I said, family is just so important, and having your community stand behind you and understand that we aren't perfect either. Wood is not perfect. Wood, like us, is going to age. It's going to get laugh lines, and it's going to get wrinkles, and it needs to be preserved. We try to fix our pieces ahead of time. But you'll see in some of these, they've got some cracks in them.
So what we do basically is we will carve them and sort of let them sit for a little while and let the wood express itself in some of those cracks, and we will then fix it with a piece of the same log that we saved during the blockout process. And so that way, once it's fixed, after it's cracked, the cracks basically disappear and they're done.
It becomes part of the character, and it becomes part of the uniqueness of the piece.
Yep. And even for the on-site sculptures, we typically have our customers save a piece. That way, whenever we have to go back and do a repair, we actually have a piece of the log that they had. So the grain matches, the color matches, and the expansion rate is the same. So
the on-sites, we like to let them kind of do their thing for a year. That way they've been through a full set of seasons. You know, here in Missouri, we don't always have the full seasons, but we like to go through that because just like there at Liberty Park, there's quite a few splits. When you have the fresh tree cut, it's got more moisture in it, and that moisture wants to come out. And so some people were worried that there had been vandalism that had taken place, and it's like, no, we were just in our settling period and everything, like a foundation for a house and stuff. We had to go through some of those extra parts to be able to get to.
And the most movement typically occurs within the first 6 to 9 months, because when we carve a piece, it changes the stress dynamics inside of it, and then the drying process, of course, is accelerated because instead of it being a huge log, now it's a sculpture that has 3 times the surface area, and then we just, as you say, let it do its thing, and then come back and fix it, and then reseal it, and typically they're good. And as far as preservation goes, we put things called borate rods in the bases of the on-sites and even some of the larger sculptures like the eagle you may have seen in the trailer as you were coming in. And those you'll typically see like linemen putting them in telephone poles to stop them from rotting, so they don't have to replace the poles as often. Same thing with our art. And then other borate products underneath the top coat, which that's the only thing the customer really has to redo themselves. So.
And the borate's also what's used on log homes and pieces like that as well. So like I said, that is all in part of our preservation, internal, external coating before we put our Australian timber oil on it that we like to use.
Yep. So I think that about covers it. So.
Question, can I ask a first question?
Sure.
So tell us about your marketing platform. Where do you market it? How do you market it? You mentioned your customers are literally all over the United States and stuff. Tell us about your marketing platform.
We do a lot of marketing through Facebook, and we actually just got her daughter getting us on Instagram. Have had a lot of direct contact type marketing, and then referrals. I get a lot of that. Like typically when a customer has an on-site done, then all the neighbors kind of ask them, what's the deal with this? Where did you find the people? And of course we always leave them with a stack of business cards, so that always helps. And then of course driving around, as you've seen the vehicle, we don't go anywhere without sculptures, so kind of rolling advertisement, if you will, and then we get the fuel benefits in our tax statement, so that's always helpful. So
we're branching out into galleries as well and doing different events. We don't typically do like a craft show. We try to stay more the fine art section of that. And a one-day craft show, that's a lot of setup for us to do. Plus, often we carve on site when we are set up. So we like situations where we're not going to put sawdust on the granite studies lovely crochet pieces next to us, or a car show where they've spent all that time polishing a piece. They also don't want our sawdust either. So, and so we're working in some galleries. We're expanding what has been seen as, chainsaw sculptures. word of mouth has really been our best. Our happy customers have really been the difference. We have lots and lots of repeat. And so internet is great, but wood is heavy. People don't think about that when they go to shop. They don't think about the expense. You know, they love a piece, want a piece, but it's going to cost almost as much to ship it at times because of the crating that has to be built around me. There's on Facebook alone, I have 500 other chainsaw carving friends throughout the world. It's a network. There's a lot of family there as well. And recently, in the last couple of years, some memorial pieces that were done, even though they were built with the crates to the specs, damage was in transit. And it was extensive damage. So this family had ordered this military piece. There was a memorial. They even kind of saved up as the family to get this to honor their loved one. And then it got damaged. So then that family felt like we've lost another piece of our family member once again, even though we were trying to honor them. And as artists, we are making one-of-a-kind pieces. We can make you something similar, but it's never going to be exactly the same. It's not going to have the same tone. It's not going to have the same character. The wood's going to be different. And so, like I said, in person, a lot of it, you mentioned pop-up, kind of this was a pop-up kind of feel with cafes and stuff. We do pop-up carvings. We have different businesses that we're networked with, we're friends with. They say, hey, you know, we're going to have such and such going on. Would you want to come out and carve this weekend? Weather's going to be good. If we're available, we go out and carve. We do on-site performance stuff as well. Sometimes things like, you know, a wedding has a little bit more of a whimsical flair. We can come out, we can be in the background, we can carve pieces that they can take away. We can carve a piece to be gifted to the married couple for their new home. So like I said, really expanding the idea of what can be done. Yes, ma'am.
So how long have you been in business, and is it just the two of you?
It is just the two of us. I've been in business for 22 years professionally. I actually started when I was about 7 years old, so obviously not quite professional until I was 18, but since then I've been carving for 22 years professionally.
And professionally, part of what he means, not just the level of work that he brings, but
making a living at it.
this is all Nick has ever done. He has been a full-time carver his entire life. His dad's
Never filled out a W-2,
Yeah.
so, if that says anything. So
His dad's carved for over 44 years in Washington area and Northwest. They have been in lots of competitions. Some people have seen different shows on TV, or like I said, people do carve at the fair and things like that. Like, they've done, you know, networking with that. They've won many awards, and
my father's actually won the world championships twice. I've personally done 7th in the nation is the best before I stopped competing. So, and that was over 10 years ago. Sorry.
I've been carving for 4 years. Like I think I mentioned earlier, I have a fine art background. I had never planned on getting anywhere near a chainsaw. Ceramics had been my major originally, and I had actually lived in textiles as well, and I attended Kansas City Art Institute for part of my education. Life's funny. You know, you don't think you're going to move back home necessarily either after, you know, get away. So, I mean, I had to come home to learn lots of things and to really develop some relationships for my kids with their grandparents and other parts of the community. But, so I fell into chainsaw carving, which sounds kind of odd, but literally fell into chainsaw carving. I had a situation where I was doing some baking, flipped a kitchen chair, came down, hit the sink, because I'm short. You guys maybe noticed I did not use one of the little step ladders, climbed a chair, put something in the cupboard, didn't land so well. Ended up having to have rotator cuff surgery. Well, life's funny. Timing's everything. I had to postpone an appointment in Warrensburg. It put me on the highway at the same time that a chainsaw carver happened to be coming through town. I had never really paid much attention to chainsaw carving. It was a folk art. It's great for those who like folk art. That wasn't my thing. This guy happened to have gnomes. He had tons of garden gnomes, including a Kansas City Royals foam, styrofoam gnome that was at the World Series later. We met, we talked, I get on Facebook, I find out there's fantastic pieces of fine art, things you would find in marble or bronze that are being done. There's competitions all over the world. You know, pieces that you would never imagine. Recently, one of my friends over in the UK did a piece for a client. They happen to have a piece of Renaissance art that they had always admired at their favorite museum. he carved a three-dimensional angel based off of that, and then they had the landscaping built to support them. So like I said, I found a whole other world of fine art that was being made, and I networked in and got invited to North Carolina and had my first chainsaw. My dad thought I was crazy. He's like, you just had shoulder surgery. Last year you couldn't even start the lawnmower. How are you going to chainsaw? I'm like, Dad, as soon as somebody starts the saw, I'm going to go. And like, I didn't know it's heavy. I didn't know that, cedar, bugs don't like cedar. Roly-polies like to get into that bark. I did not know that until I had to evict the 200 roly-polies. Like, it's quite a learning curve. And like I said, I bring all sorts of stuff to the art form that hasn't been seen before. Like I said, this piece right here literally hasn't been seen before. The landscape that's being done on that eagle. We are going to be the guest artists over in Jefferson City at the brunch center for the Conservation Department for the month of February and March, provided COVID doesn't delay us once again. But so pieces like this are going to be finished and displayed and released for the first time. The painting on the flag, the eagle out in the parking lot, and the tiger, those are pieces that are normally never seen in chainsaw work. It's just, like I said, a lot of them, beautiful sculpting, great use of the tools. I still haven't made firewood yet in 4 years. And, but they can't draw, they can't paint. And so like I said, we're bringing together, and part of your question earlier, we've been together for 2 years now. So like I said, Bero Arts itself, Nick Bero has been, and his father Fred Bero have been carving that long, but the joint combination and elevating the art form and being able to offer different things to our clients, and like I said, more of the gallery side of it and nature conservation as well. So like I said, that's been the last 2 years.
Do you have a source for what do you do with the sawdust and all your extra?
Actually, a lot of that, for the bigger sculptures, we will carve them out at Tim's Tree Services lot. And they actually make mulch every other year. And so this just kind of gets folded into that. And it is basically just that mulch once it's all said and done. We do keep some of the cedar sawdust for like, because we have a dog at home, and she loves the cedar. So like I say.
Please don't like cedar.
Yep.
And with some of the homesteading and things like that that are taking place, a friend of mine recently said, hey, we're going to do this composting outhouse situation out on our property, and do you have, we've got cedar sawdust for you for that, we'll just start setting that aside.
How many hundreds of pounds do you want?
Exactly.
So.
But, yes.
So I imagine, I hadn't thought about the idea of taking a tree from someone's yard that they were connected to, and turning it into a memory for them. Have you seen that translated into like wedding receptions and centerpieces that family members would then take home? I'm just thinking, have you done any centerpieces for weddings?
We have not as of yet. I mean, they were initially set up for that. But like I said, that's one of the branches that we're going to move into. And also anything that can be done as an ice sculpture, we can also do. Nick's done ice sculpting. He's actually done stone sculpting whenever he is in Washington State. But like I said, trying to expand the mindset of what's possible and everything. So like figuring some of that out in regards to like marketing and stuff. Right now it is still us, and the year's been crazy, and like I told everybody, I said, you can have me on the internet, or I could be making art, So it's finding the balance, and that's one of the things, especially is a family-based business. There's a lot of hours that go into what we're doing. There's a lot of cleanup that goes into what we're doing. We don't just get dressed and drive to work and punch a time clock or something like that. There's a lot of physical labor that's involved in it, and so it's finding a balance and still preserving our family and family time.
And a lot of that stuff with like a personal piece with a customer that has paid us to come and carve at their event. We will do a kind of a back and forth discussion with them and find out what their interests are and something that they want to represent in wood, and basically just make really what they want. And as far as like for a wedding, that would also be one of those instances where we would ask them what they are really looking for as kind of a memory for this event that they're going to keep in their family for hopefully generations, and hand down to their children and hopefully their grandchildren. So.
But we're also branching into some possibilities of having pieces that are available to rent for decor as well. And especially, with the fun that everybody has with taking selfies and stuff, people often, like the Tiger in particular, we would stop places and people want to have their family picture taken with it. So there's other event opportunities like that for us, where we maybe don't come in and set up, but we provide some of the backdrop type things for a piece. We were guests at the Whitetail event banquet in January. And
Missouri Kids Whitetails banquet and benefit dinner auction.
So not only did we donate a few pieces for that, we also had a lot of the decor that they used for that as well. So, like I said, over at the Runch Center and everything, we're looking forward to that, to expand more into the conservation aspects of it. And, try to get people to ask for public art, support things like the Squirrel Project. And, there's a lot of beautification and things that can be done in neighborhoods that maybe the homeowners themselves don't really have the money to have work done, but a community could. Pieces. One of the popular things right now is people doing owls on stacks of books. And the library had a tree that they had taken down at one point. So I said, community art and everything. Ideally, we want to work smarter and not as hard. And so, like I said, wood's heavy. So we can only carve for so long and everything, but ideally we'd like to be in a situation where we're able to give back to the community more and to be able to do pieces in different communities as part of giving back to them as well. So having benefactors,
So can I ask this last question?
Sure.
So what happens if you're working on this tree that's been topped with some jar they have this great idea about, and something was terribly wrong and half of it breaks off, and they're thinking, oh my gosh, because this stuff you can't put back together.
Well, we actually can, if it really depends on the situation, but if a piece does break off, I have various tools and fasteners that are like endemic to the construction industry.
things like lag bolts.
Yeah, lag bolts and things called timber locks. They're like a lag bolt, but they're much finer, but have the same tensile strength. So things can be added back on, and then like a two-part epoxy, which is actually stronger than most woods. So
If the tree's small, but they have a grand idea and want a bigger piece, we can actually add wood from another tree onto that. So we could have, bears climbing a tree if that's what they would want, or we could bring in an eagle. Boots family here in town recently wanted a memorial for their mom, and she had a favorite cedar tree that she loved looking at when she was going through her chemo and everything, and they wanted eagles. Well, the tree itself didn't lend as much for what they wanted, and we were able to marry in another full wings up eagle on the top of the stump they had related, and then we were able to do a eagle over in the lower area, and we built a nest around it. So like I said, we can add to, we don't just always subtract from.
Okay.
And we investigate the wood well, because we want our work to last. We want you to be happy.
I think that would be incredibly frustrating.
it can be.
Hours, maybe days or weeks on a piece.
Yep. And over my career, I've spent 35,000 hours just trying to get better at overcoming obstacles like that, and then trying to take the art further. So, like some professions, you may be able to learn all the ins and outs of it in a few years, and then just simply refine from that. There is no end in the art industry, so you're never done learning. So.
How much time, sorry, I have some questions.
That's all right.
How much time do you have in a piece like this of this size or a piece of that size?
Like just as an example, the cardinal piece here, and there's actually two different cardinals here, and they vary quite a bit. This one is more of like a retail sales piece, and there's maybe a couple hours in this one, whereas this one is more of a museum quality piece, and there's upwards of 25 hours in this one piece here. And then like the larger eagle out there in the trailer, well, it's got the flag painted on it, it has over 40 hours in it and probably 25 in the Tiger.
And then also we run into situations like, some of your chores at home, some of them you like better than others. So you get the dishes done faster than maybe full of laundry. So if it's a particular subject piece that we're familiar with, take less of our eagles, for instance.
Eagles are my favorite.
They flow differently. They go a little faster. So time isn't always the main factor. It's the type of style and orientation and the aesthetics of the piece that also set a price.
What can we as a community do for you?
Well, like I say, you know, we're always looking for places to display our art, and like I say, we like to actually have some of our pieces kind of on loan to either homeowners or business locations that are higher visibility, or you know, just places that really enjoy art and like to kind of put that forward.
We don't have a brick and mortar here in Sedalia. Like I said, we've got a seasonal gallery down between Arkansas, and then where they do the stone sculpting, there's also a seasonal gallery there in Washington. So some of our bigger pieces are down for Lake of the Ozarks, and we've got some pieces over in Columbia. But to have some local neighborhoods that would like to let us display some pieces in their yard and everything. So that would be great. Or, you know, often, again, interior pieces. We take stuff sometimes down to the public library to get that mantle and everything, to be able to get some nice lighting. So if somebody has a home that they would like us to feature as our backdrop for some of our pieces as well, we would work out, you know, a gift certificate for them. Also, one of the things that we've been offering the last year, besides gift certificates, is we are able to do payment plans on some of our larger sculptures. And so you get it in the meantime, and then it's set up on plan, as opposed to layaway where